Let's go ahead and first start off letting you guys know in regards to your cell phones. If you can please be kind and go ahead and put that on vibrate, mute, whatever you feel comfortable, or on silent, however your cell phone device works. With that also, we are going to be having an opportunity for you to ask some questions. So we do have a line moderator over there, and we do have one of the table mics that we'll be utilizing in order for you to ask the questions to Mr. Straczynski. Okay? With that, I believe...
I don't know.
Fantastic. That gives us more time for you guys to...
You don't know you're a telepath. I never hear that shit. Well, come on over. Come on over.
Yeah. We have some questions for you.
I bet you do, baby.
You officially
All right. We can actually go ahead and get started here. Let's start introducing a great writer, producer in film, television, novels, short films, comic books, radio, and much, much more. But most known for his greatest contribution in the sci-fi Babylon 5. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome J. Michael Straczynski. Very well. First of all, I'd like to welcome you
Thank
to
you.
Phoenix Comic Con 2013.
I should point out, I came here earlier today to come in, and I forgot my pass, which is hard to do. They're about the size of a bulletin board. And the guy says, "Look, I can't let you in without some kind of proof that you're with the convention. You have some kind of ID or something." And I see this. So I showed it to the guy. So how do I know that's you? Who would look like this if he didn't have to? I got in.
We're glad.
The closest experience I had to this was meeting a guy at UCLA recently, working on a project with UCLA, and I went to meet this professor on the quad, and he said, "How do I know how to find you? What do you look like?" I said, "The love child of Herman Munster and Woody Allen." Sadly, he found me. Based on that.
Very well. Well, I would actually like to start off asking you a question in regards to Babylon 5. I believe in 1994 is when it all pretty much started for Babylon 5. Now, one of those questions is, how in the world did you even think of coming up with some sort of a Earth Alliance space station, or how did that idea even come to you?
Well, it came from a number of different places. Parents had to go, "Can I have like the last half hour of this or something else? Is that okay?"
The what?
I like the last half hour. Can I start over something else?
Okay.
Good. Because it was something. This is a particular panel. I want to talk about something in particular later on. So, okay. I've been playing around with two different notions for series. One was this big. Hello. My assassins are usually sneakier than that. You're the what? The line moderator? You moderate the line?
See, it's very well moderated.
I was going to say, you've done a bang-up job so far. I've had nightmares like this. It just all goes downhill. What the hell? Oh yeah, station. I was playing around with ideas for two different shows. One was this big, huge space saga with, massive production values, very expensive, intergalactic civilizations and interstellar wars and all this stuff, and also an idea for a show about a space station where people are living in a tin can trying to deal with each other. And one morning in the shower, I realized they're both the same show, that the small show was the big show writ small, that you show the repercussions and ramifications of the big show on individuals on the space station. And when I saw that, this whole 5-year arc just snapped into my head. scared the hell out of me. And I wrote down pretty much the whole arc as much as I could in the next couple of hours, and then spent the next 5 years elaborating on that.
In regards to space, given the shows that we've had in the past, from the 50s, 60s, to various types of movies that have come with sci-fi, do you think there's any more stories really to write about space, to write about any type of a frontier?
Are you setting me up for something? Because, yeah, of course there are. Yeah, yes.
So are you saying that you have some in your
Want to fight about it? Do I have it in my sleeve?
Yeah, something in production.
Other organs, perhaps? No, I don't at this moment. Well, I kind of do, but different story. Yes, I think there is a lot more to do with space. Look, stories are as wide and as divergent as the human heart. Every person in this room represents a different story. Each person sees the world through the lens of your own unique experiences, your past, your education, your family, your belief systems. You put any of these people in space, not just hard space, I mean in a suit of some kind, protected, so they wouldn't die, on other worlds, and stories will manifest themselves. And the best stories are always those that deal with, as Faulkner said, with the human heart in conflict with itself. The technology doesn't matter. You can take a lot of the stories on B5 and move them somewhere else. What matters was the characters. So yeah, there's an infinite number of stories that can be told in a number of environments, from space to Washington, D.C. to Newark, New Jersey. Not a lot in Newark, New Jersey, because I'm from there and I saw it. There's something there to play with. But yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead and open it up then to questions to anyone on the floor. So if you want, please go ahead and step up to the line moderator and we'll go ahead and begin.
Yeah, shy people are always wearing Earth resistance costumes. Oh, you had them all the way up. Well, this is good. You're in striking range. Yes. Okay. I'm so sorry. Mike? Moderator, where the hell were you? You weren't moderating. I've seen moderation, that wasn't it.
So I was just saying that this
No, push the microphone toward you and lead like this.
Okay. I'm a flight attendant, so I should be used to this.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, buckle through your seatbelts.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm from Montreal, Canada, and
We've all sinned.
I'm French. And
We've all sinned big
Oui?
time.
Hey! So I was very
Separatist? Separatist?
Sorry, I stole the show.
No, it's okay. I had this great line in Triumph the Insult Comic Dog where he's up in Montreal and talks about separatists, and he says, and they say yes. He said, the sound you're hearing now is the world not giving a shit. I didn't say it. That was Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. All right. Excellent. Oh, are you there? Are you still there? Yes.
Basically, we were just watching the last 2 episodes of Babylon 5 with my partner last night, and I hadn't watched it maybe a year or two, and I mean, the show itself speaks for itself. It's a show with heart and soul. You can't explain it. It's a combination, of course, of your amazing writing, the amazing acting. We all know this, but just so you know, I'm French-Canadian, and I grew up watching the show. I was maybe 16, and I basically learned English watching your show, which is very interesting because I guess I speak in very epic monologues. My question...
You're awful brave for a French-Canadian. Because you're annoying and boring at the same time. Oh, stop. Welcome to our country.
Okay, so my question is, who's the pretty redhead that you're with today?
I beg your pardon? Who was the big redhead I was with?
No. Who's the pretty redhead that you're with today?
Today?
Yes.
I haven't been in the contact with any pretty redheads today. That's the first time I've seen her today. We spoke on the phone today. You called. Is this not true? Have you seen me today at all? No.
Okay. So
You're fucking delusional. And this is my problem?
So there's nothing you'd like to tell us?
No.
I think it's time for a new line moderator.
I take full responsibility for that.
Come to Phoenix, they said. You'll enjoy it. I'm holding you responsible for this, by the way. Oh.
I'm the one that.
Yeah.
My fault.
I just want to say, for starters, it's a real pleasure to meet you. My girlfriend and I actually are both writers. We grew up watching your shows, and it's been amazing. I wanted to know, though, what a lot of people say that sci-fi and fantasy are in this ghetto, that they're not taken seriously as literature, as art forms. What would be your advice to people who want to tell the kind of stories that you've been telling and telling wonderfully? While still somehow reaching that mass appeal and still, playing with the spaceships and lasers that we love to do.
I think really you just have to stay true to your heart as a writer, write what you're passionate about. Mark Twain pointed out that we all, despite our differences, share the same things. We all, want a better life for ourselves and our kids. We are all prey to jealousy, to all the failings of the flesh, to love and aspirations. And we all have those microcosms within us. And as long as you write true to your own passions and what you care about, it doesn't matter, the chrome can be adjusted. Yes, we are in a ghetto as far as the networks are concerned, because they don't understand science fiction. To this day, which freaks me out, because you would think, having grown up now, most of them now are in their 20s and 30s, you would think, having grown up on Aliens and Terminator and others, that they would have some notion of what the heck science fiction was, but they're as scared of it now as they were back 20 years ago. Which is why you don't see a lot of it on television. If they do one space show and if it doesn't work out, then they assume science fiction doesn't work on television. If a cop show bombs, they don't say, well, cop shows don't work. That just never happens. So, that being said, from the writing side of things, which before you get to the marketing side, just write true to yourself. Whenever for me, when I settle into a scene, I always go for the small details. I was working on Twilight Zone. I wanted to have the character talking about an argument that he had with his wife. And I thought, at the time I was having dinner with Harlan Ellison, and I was saying maybe this big finances, it was a big, losing the mortgage. He said, no, that's horseshit. He said, people argue about the dumbest stuff. And it's the dumb stuff you regret later. So he said, have it where that, he used to have this thing where he would say, pass me the jelly, dear, and she would say, here's the jam. And it was a game that they would play, but one day he just got annoyed by it. They argued about jam and jelly. And I put that in the script. And Eddie Arnold was the guy who played that episode called Dream Me a Life. And I was on set when he shot that. And his own wife had recently passed away. And he was acting out his grief about his wife's passing in the character. And he said, we had those exact kind of arguments all the time. So, you write to the truth. You write to the scene of what's in your heart, and the rest will follow.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Hi. I was wondering if you could tell me what happened to Lanier after the end of B5.
No. What's it worth to you? No, we were going to get into that in Crusade, and that's a story that I may yet tell down the road, and we will see. Eventually, he died.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I know that. But... So I will never know? That makes me very sad.
He found a puppy. And he raised the puppy, who he named Sniffles, because it had a runny nose all the time. And he made a little Minbari crown for the puppy. And it was a pup Bari. And they had many adventures together. And then they died. And a cameo appearance by Pup Bari. It was going so well. And you started all this. Yes. Hello.
Hello. I just want to thank you, and I know everybody here would like to thank you for all the enjoyment that you've given us over the years with the work that you've done on television and beyond with Babylon 5, Twilight Zone, and such. And just want to thank you for that. And for the for future sci-fi, I know we just heard recently that Bab 5 is in a legal limbo right now in terms of episodes and availability and such. Would you ever consider doing another sci-fi series, something like Sector General by James White, or some of the other ones? I know Harry Harrison did a number of series like the Stainless Steel Rat. There's a number of sci-fi series that I think could also benefit from your Midas touch.
What's the opposite of the Midas touch where it turns to shit?
The opposite of Midas touch is what they're showing now on television.
I see. As it turns out, I'm actually doing another new series. We sold the series to Netflix. 10-episode commitment. I'm writing, producing. I'm writing, producing, and directing it with the Wachowskis, who did the Matrix movies. Yeah. And 10-episode commitment. We're going on the air in the fall of 2014. We'll be shooting in China, Germany, India, Africa, UK, US, Mexico. And it's a huge, huge story. And yeah, we're actually proceeding with that. We're in prep now, as a matter of fact. Thank you.
How's it going? Honor to see you. My name is Derek. I'm with Game Pop Network out of LA. We drove up here this morning, and it's great to hear you talk.
That was one sentence. That was amazing.
I know.
No punctuation or anything.
I know. It's a run-on. So my question is how you came up with such diverse characters for Babylon 5, and what is the importance of having characters with such strong and differing opinions when you have the conflict throughout the show?
I think it makes it more realistic, for one thing, and if your characters all talk and sound the same, after a while it gets pretty, damn boring. So, like every good writer, you look inside yourself and try not to be too frightened by what you find. So all the characters are kind of manifestations of parts of me, or parts that I aspire to be, or want to be, or hope I could be. So, Delenn and Jakar is kind of what I would hope I am. Londo is probably closer to what I am. Bester is probably closer to what I am. And you draw on yourself, on your own personality. Because we contain multitudes. We are legion. And we have, the demons inside of us and the angels inside of us. And the good thing about being a writer is you get to listen to both sides to get it out onto the paper where it can't hurt anybody. And that's somebody else's problem. Thank you.
A little bit earlier, a gentleman had came up to me and confused me. A little bit earlier, a gentleman had come up and confused me.
There's a gentleman here?
Yeah.
At a convention? No.
Confused me with you, and I didn't know whether to be insulted.
You did the fondling. I heard there was an incident. They said it was me. Apparently it was you.
I don't think so.
Not a very strong denial. I don't think so. It's kind of like I didn't inhale.
We'll just leave it. No, actually, my question is this: of the key story points in your series, which ones were preserved from your original vision? Which ones did you add or later on because of your own choice, or perhaps your hand was forced in some way? There's a lot to cover. You don't have to cover them all, obviously, but maybe one or two of each.
Well, no, pretty much all the ones that I had in mind we did. Yeah, I think we went a little bit further with the Byron story in the first part of the fifth season because I was kind of floundering a bit, given the cast changes that happened suddenly and other issues. So that probably went a little bit longer than I had in mind, but otherwise, pretty much all of it, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, back in the late 1980s, I was at a small little science fiction convention here in Phoenix. And I saw some guy whose name I couldn't spell at the time showing Ghostbusters and Captain Power episodes.
You know, even in prison you get time off for good behavior.
And I wanted to know what were the most important things that experience taught you from writing for a series like Ghostbusters and Captain Power that you carried forward into Babylon 5?
From Ghostbusters, just writing what I wanted to write. The producers there were great, Joe Medchuk and Michael Gross, who said, whatever you want to write, just go ahead and write it. And, you know, if we want to do a story about a guy who makes a deal with the devil, if you read of all the chickens in the world, feel free, you know. So that was the first thing I learned, and from Captain Power I learned how to push the edge on technology. But also, I also saw that in other shows how much of every budget was gone to waste through lack of preparation and forethought. So I thought, let's create a show where we think it through completely and we can do it responsibly and stay on budget. Thank you. Hello. Hello. Those dwarves, you can't turn your back on them for a second, can you?
So, as a writer, there's a lot of scenes throughout Babylon 5 where you make a single line item or line entry in season 1, then you reference it like season 3 or season 4 or even season 5. How much pre-planning do you do for that, or does it just sort of strike you in the moment? You know, actually had a line in season 1 with Jakar about, you know, her sexual threshold. It comes up multiple seasons later, or, you know, the security officer saying, I'll probably be here till the lights are out. And that's the moment. Do you plan that, or did it just sort of hit at the moment?
I plan that. Yeah, I have a brain like a bucket of snakes, and I can just hold all that information in my head until I need it. Pardon the occasional cough. I'm getting over the flu, and the cough is the last thing to go, unfortunately. Well, actually, I'm the last thing to go, but at the moment, the cough is the last thing to go.
First of all, I want to say that you are an inspiration for me. I'm trying to write my first novel, so thank you very much for writing Babylon 5. It's just incredible.
Thank you.
My question is about the complex relationship between Mondo Malari and Jakar, and how did you form that?
What, sorry?
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, it's like, because they started out as enemy and wound up being allies.
Yeah, that, in many ways, the story of Babylon 5 is the story of Londo and Jakar and that arc. I really wanted them to start off from a position of antagonism and grow into, in a way, kind of friends. And we were so lucky to have two extraordinary actors in those roles who you believe them at every step along the way. Which is why at one point early in the second season, we were doing flash forwards. Peter Jurczyk wanted to know, okay, what does all this mean? What does all this refer to? And I couldn't tell them or the cast, because what happens as an actor is if you know where your character is going, you begin to play the result and not the process. So it was important that he play each moment authentically. When he's angry at Jakar in season 1, threatening to kill him, you need to believe that. If he knew 4 years down that Jakar would be his bodyguard, he might have a different, approach to that scene. So yeah, I just love the morphing of that process. And the cool thing was, whenever we did a scene with Londo and Jakar in the same scene, the other actors would invariably show up just to watch them work, just to watch them. They were so extraordinarily talented in those scenes. My office was right next to the stage. And I would check the list. Okay, we have this scene, that scene. Oh, Londo and Jakar. I'm going to be on set for that one. And was always a joy to watch the process and the morphing.
Exactly, and I do know that Andreas Vasilis is sorely missed by many,
Yeah.
and I happen to be one of them. I was always a big fan of his. Thank you, sir.
Hi, when I first watched Babylon 5, I was moved by both your imagery and your words, so I went out searching and found this. I'm on my third copy of this. My question is for the
Did you
craft.
burn the first two?
No, wore them out. My question is, will you be writing more on the craft of writing, or just updating on what you did to get Babylon 5 out? Because I know there's a million untold stories, and I'm looking forward to them.
I find that the more I've learned about writing, the less I feel I know about writing. So I was okay writing a book about writing, I knew less. It was more arrogant. And I've been humbled by what my experience has been, and I feel like I can't tell anybody any goddamn thing. Thank you.
Well, I believe that there is another panel we're going to be having.
Working very well.
Oh, I should get closer. There is another panel that we're going to be having for your 20th anniversary tomorrow at 5, and that's going to be in the ballroom in 120. But do you have an actual station downstairs in the vendor hall that perhaps fans can go to? Or?
Pat, do I?
What?
4 years of this. Do I have a table? I have a table somewhere. I have a booth. I do.
S1.
Well, V2 was the main VIP autograph one. There's also a table somewhere.
You'll see it. It's
Yes, you'll see it.
There's a Big Joe's Comics banner. It's in
Yes.
the same row with all the Babylon 5 people.
Okay, it's going to be 5 people.
But it's in the back.
What's your point? I don't care.
Architecturally, we had to put it in the back. Just...
Where are the Star Trek people? Thank you, sir.
Was there anything else you wanted to leave us with?
Yeah, I do want to. I have another half hour, right? Yeah, I need to say. Okay, thank you. Get the fuck out. I want to take this discussion in a different direction for a moment, a bit more serious discussion for a moment, because there's a number of obligations that I have to discharge, and I want to make sure that they get done properly. There are a number of faces on this program, one of which is Bruce, who can't be here this weekend because he actually got a working job. But there are other faces here that should be here and are not, because you're no longer with us. And we have had a number of losses from the B5 family over the years. But there are 4 in particular that I want to talk to you about today because they can't be here, their voices cannot be heard, and I want to talk a little bit about them on their behalf. That will probably piss them off enormously from the other side, but I kind of want to talk for a moment about Jeff and about Rick and Andreas and Michael. Because I write a show about people with courage, which is really easy to do when you're sitting in an office somewhere. But to be an actual person of courage, that's a lot harder. And these 4 gentlemen, and they were gentlemen, had courage at a level that exceeds understanding and comprehension, but needs to be described and circumscribed so you understand what that is. I'll start with Jeff. When Jeff first came to, I was a big fan of Taxi for many, many years. And Jeff, had been a star of that show and was nationally known. He'd been in Greece. He had this incredible track record, which as he admitted himself in later years, he blew out the door through bad habits and bad behavior. And I was sitting in my office one day when about to go into casting for, we'll call it day players, guys who have like 1 or 2 lines in a show, and that's pretty much about it. Maybe have 2 days worth of work. And I saw Jeff's name on there. I mean, what the hell is he doing here for what's basically a line you would give to someone who had like 2 years of acting experience? And I went into the casting session with John Copeland and Doug Netter and the casting directors. And he was not at all resentful of his situation. He realized that he himself was responsible for his own problems. And said, I'm starting over. And there was equanimity, there was resilience, there was courage, there was frankness. And he came in knowing he was starting over again. And after he left, the casting director said, obviously he's had problems before, he hasn't worked in a long time. And the last thing he said on the way out the door was, give me a chance to do this, and I'll make you proud. And I said, anytime a person says, give me a chance, they've got my support. And we gave him those few lines. And he did a bang-up job. I said, bring him back again. And we lobbied, and I lobbied, and eventually we got him on that show as a series regular. And for the things that he'd been through and gone through, the courage he had to start over like that was extraordinary. And he would come into my office every few days, often with Pat, to drop vitamins off on my desk. Because they were afraid that I was working myself into a coma, which pretty much I was. One day, when it was like silver nitrate what it was? Not silver nitrate, no, it was collodium? Was it collodium? All these... Yeah, whatever. Colloidal silver. It was all that stuff, and you would always talk. And he became such a captain of the show and the characters, and never had a problem with him. He was gracious, he was wonderful, and toward the end of the show, I had a hunch something was not going right with him. And we all saw what happened later. But that wasn't Jeff. That was what the pain made Jeff. And it was a good guy coming to a bad end. But my memory of Jeff is the courage and the resilience and the optimism that he showed. And he was a good guy. And he did not deserve what happened to him. And we feel his loss every day. Rick Biggs, he loved you guys. I'm not sure you understand the degree to which he loved you guys. He would go to conventions. A lot of actors, when they go to conventions, they stay in their hotel room or somewhere safe. And only come down when they have a panel and they go back and they sit around the room and ordering hookers. And the guys who can weirder things. But Rick, anybody seen Rick at a convention? You know what he was like. He would come downstairs and he would party with the fans and dance on tables, and he and Jason would do acting workshops with you guys. And he embraced life at a degree to which I'll never get near. And what a lot of you don't know was that Rick was virtually deaf. He was almost entirely deaf in one ear and was deaf in the other ear. The way he worked was that he had to learn both his lines and the lines of the person he was in the scene with. Because often they'd be across the room or speaking very softly, he couldn't hear them. So he would read their lips to know when they were done. And to have, the kind of courage, he never complained about it, never once. And when we first hired him, as a doctor, he said, no, it's my background as a black man, as an African American, going to be part of the storyline. And I said, no. At this point in our future, 200 years hence, it doesn't matter your ethnicity, your gender, your inclination, your sexual preference, none of these things matter. If you're across the table from something with 3 heads and feathers, our differences are nothing by comparison. And it will never come up, and never did. And he was particularly pleased with that. And we often spoke about how much that meant to him and how much the role meant to him. And we lost Rick. Rick was the first to go. He was with Laurie's wife, and he was taking a nap. and got up and went to Laurie and said, I'm not feeling well, I think I'll go back and lie down some more. And lied down and never got up again. There was a problem with his heart, congenital, that he never knew about. And the light went out. And that was a hard one for all of us, because of all of us, he was one we were sure was going to last forever. Because he was strong, vital, energetic, powerful, loved to laugh, and particularly, and I cannot reinforce this enough, loved you guys, you know. And I wanted you to know how much he cared about you guys. Andreas was quieter, kept to himself more. But the thing about Andreas, when he was very self-conscious of his appearance normally, but you put the Jakar prosthetics on him and that costume, and he felt sexy suddenly. And it worked. Whenever women came to the set, they would go right to Jakar every time. And he would just like purr under the makeup, you know? and enjoy it. And he would stay in the makeup all day long, even when he had a chance to take off parts of it. He would stay in costume, in makeup, sitting behind the stage smoking, unfortunately. And would always try and take the scene to, an area where none of us had thought. When I wrote the scene with him and Londo in the elevator, where they're gonna, Charles gonna watch Londo die and die himself, it was written initially very seriously. Look, yeah, I don't have to do anything, I get to watch you die, I'll die, that's life. And I was walking across the stage when I heard the bell go off, meaning we were about to start rolling film, stop moving. I stopped where I was, and I heard this laughter. What the hell is that? I know which scene they're shooting, it's not a funny scene. Like somebody reading the Bible and listen, there's a crack up line. No, there's nothing, And I heard the bell go off again, meaning they'd stopped shooting. And I came around to where the elevator set was, and I caught them like guilty children smoking behind the barn or something. Well, we were just playing, Andrea said. We thought we'd try it this way and see if it worked. We were going to shoot it your way too, the dull way that you had in mind. We thought we'd film it the right way first. I said, show me. And they did it again, and it was all I could do not to just fall on the floor laughing. I said, keep it. He could always go one step further than you thought the scene would go and make it something extraordinary, which is why we always wanted to be on set when they were there. I was coming back from a convention, I forget which one now, and I got off the plane and I turned on my phone and there was a message waiting there from Walter. I called back Walter. And Walter said, have you heard about Andreas? And I said, no. He says, he's dying. I said, what? Bill Mooney, well, Bill can say anything. You never know with Bill. He said, no, call him. And I hung up immediately. I'm still in the cab and I call Andreas. I said, what the hell's going on? He says, he's laughing on the phone. Said, I'm dying. That's not fucked up. I'm on all these great meds, I'm having vitamins, I've never felt better in my life, and I'm dying. What's up with that? And what had happened was, there was a cancer that was hiding behind his sternum. And so it never showed up on the x-rays until it got large enough to peek out the other side. And suddenly it showed up. And there was nothing they could do. I would face that situation with abject terror. Andreas faced it with an equanimity and a grace and a courage that I am still in awe of to this day. If my time comes that I can face it with that kind of nobility of spirit and quietude, I will have done something worthwhile with my life. And toward the very end, he called for dinner, a Last Supper, with me and Peter Jurasik and Doug Menner. And we went to his house and he loaded up on the meds so we could have a proper dinner. And we talked and laughed through the night. And at one point Andrea says, tell me all the dirt. Tell me all the shit that went down behind the scenes that we never knew about. Who am I going to tell? His exact words. So I said, sure, and told him all the stuff that no one knew, including part of what I'm going to get to here in a moment. And he was very pleased by that. He finally got all the secrets. And on the way out, he paused each one of us at the door on the way out and looked at us in the way of saying, I will never see your face again, and I want to remember it. And held that for a moment, and hugged us, and we went on our way. And that was the last time I saw Andreas, who passed away not long afterward. But the courage of the man. If I were to write for 1,000,000 years, nothing I could ever write could convey that as well as what I saw in his eyes that night. Then there's Michael, and the promises I have to keep. This is really hard. One of the last times I saw Michael O'Hare was in my office when we finished shooting the two-parter, War Without End. And we were talking about the circumstances that led to B5 and Michael going different ways. A secret that we both had kept. And we were both very happy with how the two-parter had gone, and I said, I will keep this secret to my grave. And he laughed and thought about it for a second and said, tell you what, make a deal with you. Keep it to my grave. Because I want the fans to know that some things happen to people and there's no shame in it, that there's no stigma attached to it, that if the commander of a space station can have this happen to him, lead of a show, then it can happen to anyone. And that families need to know that they can talk about these things. I said, well, that'll never be an issue. And I swear this is my actual next words. So you and Rick are going to outlive all of us. And we know what happened afterward to a degree. Here's what he wanted you to know. I'll put this in somewhat simple terms, not too much detail. During the latter part of season 1 on B5, we and Michael began to realize he was having physical issues that led to psychological issues in terms of, you know what delusional behavior is? It's the kind of thing where you see messages to yourself in newspapers and magazines, or you hear voices, or you're sure you're being surveilled by the FBI, those kinds of things. And Michael was having issues, and he was aware of it, and we were aware of it. And it's kind of that can be corrected, and that's what we wanted to talk to him about, and wanted, these are things that can be addressed through medication, through treatment, but we were in the middle of shooting, well, the last third of shooting. And what do we do about this? And I thought about it really hard. And I could write him out for a couple of episodes, but I couldn't write him out long enough to get the kind of help he really needed. And I was prepared to shut down the show, to make sure he got the help he needed. And Michael came to my office after we talked about this. He said, don't do it. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Don't let me be the reason that these people lose their jobs and that this show falls. Let me try. Let me try and get by. And those 3 words, let me try, kind of like give me a chance on my kryptonite. If I hear that, I have to back the play. Always have, always will. And he soldiered on under a burden that no one else knew about. And he got through that season like a man clinging to a cliff by his fingernails. And I could see him suffering. I could see him fighting every day to stay controlled, stay focused. And again, the raw, naked courage of the man to keep fighting. And we finished the season, and no one knew. And he knew he wasn't going to be able to come back for a second season. I knew it. He couldn't take the strain. And he needed to get the help he needed. So we agreed to part ways at that point. I said, I will bring you back to finish up your arc of your character. We will shoot a short scene now that I can drop in at some appropriate point in the story, saying you're going to come back, giving a message to Garibaldi. Don't worry about rent or food. Don't worry, just taking care of it, you know. And he spent the next X number of months. His family came to the fore, his friends came to the fore. My wife at the time, Catherine Drennan, was a huge help to him. Sandra Bruckner, who later on ran the B5 fan club, is aware of this, was a huge help. And they were working through various meds with him to get him on target. And gradually it began to work. It began to take root. It was a hard process. I remember we went to the first convention we had to do after that was, I think it was Icon in Long Island. Pretty sure it was Icon. And Michael was there, and I made a point to be there for and with Michael. And I remember seeing him right before he went in, and he was pale from the medication, and his hands trembled. But he was determined to go on. And what was amazing was when I saw him walk into a room with you, with the fans. The color came back to his cheeks. The confidence came back. You, the group, sustained him and empowered him and brought him to life in ways no medication ever could. Funny small story. On the way back from the convention, we were driving down the freeway. In a van was myself, Catherine, Michael. And we heard this sound like a motorcycle roar, the obnoxious kind of motorcycle roar, kind of thing. And I looked to the left, I don't see a motorcycle. I looked to the right, I don't see a motorcycle. I look behind us, nothing. And then I look forward, and I see two airplane wheels coming down in front of the windshield, which is a really bad sign. And the driver puts the brakes on, and this plane that was doing an emergency landing shoots right past us and lands on the freeway. It was a small private plane, and it was like 6 inches from taking out the car. And maybe that was why Michael was thinking in terms of he did, because when we convened to do the two-parter, and he was again strong, and he was there, and he was prepared, and got through it, and we were talking again about the whole situation, and that's when he said what he said. And in the years that followed, he tried to get his career going. There were some good days, some bad days, some on med, some off med, and it took a toll. It took a toll. But his family was there for him, his friends were there for him, and finally he left us a little while ago, and ended that story. But I wanted you to know, from what he's always said to me, and from what I've seen in my own eyes, how much he loved you guys, and how much you mattered to him, and how much you sustained him. I'm not sure he would have made it as far as he did, if not for you, because in the interim, he could do a couple of conventions. He always came back revived and better and stronger, because of you. And my hope is that the people who are on this program are still with us 1,000 years from now. I don't know if that will be the case. So as you move amongst them, as well as celebrating what has been done, or what is being done, take a moment and look at them as Andreas looked at us. Be generous with your kindness, with your words, with your affection. Remember the moment. And when you go home, take that with you. And look at your friends and your family as Andreas looked at us. Hold those moments. Because flesh is fickle. Flesh goes in a second. But love persists. And that love Michael had for you, and you had for Michael, persists. And Andreas had for you, and Rick, and Jeff, and all of us. And we thank you for that. And that's all I wanted to say.
for joining us. Look for your schedules to go downstairs and see if he has his booth available. And again, join us again on Saturday.